Película.
La llegada de Neil Armstrong a la Luna fue un pequeño paso para el hombre, pero un gran paso para la humanidad. Soy Gaby Cam y estoy aquí en la cobertura de la película First Man, protagonizada por Ryan Gosling, que cuenta la historia precisamente de Neil Armstrong, y estoy en la NASA en Cabo Cañaveral, a punto de someterme al entrenamiento al que se someten los astronautas. Deseenme suerte y no se pierdan este especial con entrevistas exclusivas en De Película.
First man to walk on the moon. That'd be something.
Which were the key points of these people's personality for you to portray them, and which was the hardest part for you to connect with?
A solid question deserves solid answers.
Sure.
Well, I found Neil, very hard to connect to in a lot of ways because he's such a unique person that lives such a singular experience. You know, it's very hard to imagine what that might have been like. He was such a deep and focused person who sort of, he was flying before he could drive, and went on to serve his country with distinction. Just incredible courage, bravery, selflessness, brilliant. So I don't know. Had I not had the help of his sons and his sister and his friends and co-workers, I really don't think I could have done it.
We're gonna have to start from scratch.
Go and throttle up.
Only after we master these tasks do we consider trying to land on the moon.
What's the key to maintain suspense and people actually in the edge of their seats while they're watching a story they already know the ending to?
I think one thing that worked in our favor is that even though people know the very ending, they don't really know what led up to it. It's actually an incredible amount that's unknown about the story, and that's what we wanted to focus on the most. We wanted to focus on things like Neil's Gemini 8 mission that no one knows anything about, that almost ended in death. Things like the LLRV that Neil trained on and crashed and almost died in, the multi-axis trainer, the Apollo 1 fire. Things like that I think are actually shockingly unknown to most people. They were unknown to me when I started researching on this. And so I think that was what really excited us about this movie, was realizing how much material there is behind the famous Apollo 11 landing that is unknown and that we could really show audiences for the first time.
Neil, if his flight is successful, you'll go down in history. What kind of thoughts do you have about that?
We're planning on the flight being successful.
And there's not a lot of people who get to say that they were first at anything, Actually, most of the things we see have been done somehow. So do you remember at what point did you realize how important what your dad was doing?
Certainly not at the time.
Okay.
I mean, we were aware of what was happening, but we didn't have the historical context to understand how important it was around the world. So that understanding came much later.
Well, I'm still working on it, actually. I'm not sure that I will ever completely understand it in the same way that people who are looking at it from outside,
of course,
see it. So, I know that it happened, and I get it, but I don't get it, if that makes sense. He's just dad. Right?
Damn, that is a big mother. It'll go up like a half-kiloton A-bomb if it blows.
The vehicle's not safe.
We need to fail down here so we don't fail up there.
I feel like this is a story about people, It's not necessarily about someone getting to the moon, but the people who were surrounding him and how he was. And there was this one quote I really liked about him, and one thing that I think it described him perfectly, which was, we need to fail, in order to get this right. So I wanted to know, what do you think about that, and how failure has somehow managed to bring you where you are right now as people and as an actress as well?
I think failure sort of makes it sound as if you're constantly striving for something in a way and like falling over and then getting back up again. But I think it's just so much about doing the wrong thing and then realising that wasn't particularly the right thing to do at that time, and then trying not to do that again.
No, it is. I agree. It's that sometimes you learn more from doing something that feels really wrong for the character than if you did something really right, you know.
Yeah.
And being able to work in the way that we worked on this film, you know, loosely with the script in a documentary style where we could try things out, and we had a 2-week rehearsal period where we could do anything we wanted. You know, those like failures, those things that you try that feel like, oh, that's
Not working.
that is really wrong, actually help you the most in some way, because it gives you sort of like, okay, you know, it just, you don't have to look anymore in that direction.
He very much instilled that in us, that, you know, you're not always going to get it right, but what you learn from your failures, and you apply that learning as you go forward, and we've certainly tried to do that in our lives.
Well, you know, I find Neil's story so incredibly inspiring, and the entire story of going to the moon in the 60s, you know, when you think of the amount of doubt and uncertainty and failure that that program, that journey was beset with, it sort of puts things in perspective. It makes every other kind of failure seem small,
Sure.
you know, and every other dream seem smaller. There's no grander dream than going to the moon.
There are risks, but we have every intention of coming back.
Somebody got a Swiss Army knife? A Swiss Army knife? Are you kidding me? Here we go.
6, 5, 4, 3,